Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategic Timeout. We're here yet again with another team preview for the Pakistan Super League Season 9. This time, talking about Islamabad United. Um, Islamabad United, two-time PSL champions, but the last few seasons they've not been terrible, but they've not been up to standards either. Uh, the last time they made a final in the PSL was, I think, the last time they won it, which was season 3, right? उसके बाद final पहुंचे वो लोग.
No, third final yet, but at least 100% record in finals.
Sorry. And yeah, a bit of an unusual introduction, but I have Talha with me here yet again, the resident Islamabad United fan. Um, he is going to be jogging my memory throughout this because currently मेरे पास रात के 1 बज रहे हैं तो मेरा दिमाग इतना कोई 100% पे नहीं चल रहा है. So Talha will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this episode. Um, Talha, I'm an Islamabad fan. Obviously, the first 3 seasons, so undisputed MVPs of the tournament, Islamabad. Um, Season 4 was all right-ish, not great, not terrible either. Season 5 में bottom two finish था. I don't remember if it was last or second last. And after that they got back into the groove. They were consistently making the playoffs. But that final stretch जो आपको playoffs में आपको एक वो final push चाहिए होता है to make it all the way, वो नहीं दिख रहा था. And it's often been making the same mistakes. Um, तो इस्लामाबाद इज येट अनदर टीम जिसकी हमने देखा है जो एक कोर काफी चेंज हुई है इस साल. Obviously not all of it, not as drastic as some of the other teams, but the likes of Asif Ali, Hassan Ali, guys who were associated with the franchise for a very long time, they're no longer in the mix. You have Crick who is working with them. Obviously, Rehan Bhai is still in the mix. He's been there, and we spoke to him last week. Once again, a very nice episode. Please go back and listen to that if you haven't already. He's always a really great guy to talk to about Islamabad United and anything in cricket in general. Um, and a new coach and Mike Hesson. Um, how are you feeling about all these changes? Are you satisfied with the preseason? Obviously, the blockbuster Naseem Shah trade as well. So, what's the sentiment like on your end?
यार इस्लामाबाद का ये है कि हर ड्राफ्ट के बाद सेटिस्फाइड ही होते हैं मतलब फैंस भी और मैनेजमेंट themselves भी they're really good at building squads and the trade window and the draft window are really where they excel लेकिन एंड पे यही मसला होता है कि eventually they built a good enough squad to make the playoffs but in the playoffs they haven't really finished the job in the last 6 seasons. Although, when we talked to Rehan Bhai, he said, people talk about being clutch in the playoffs, but you have to get there as well. And that's the part that Islamabad does really well. But hopefully this year they can, go that extra mile. There's no reason why they don't have the ability to. They've built, once again a great squad, well-structured squad with clear roles, and there's no really holes or shortcomings in the players they've picked. So you know it's the same story as the last few seasons after the draft. So hopefully this time the ending can be different.
हाँ नहीं, as someone whose team hasn't made the playoffs since 2019, that was when Quetta won it. इस्लामाबाद को देख के जलन तो जरूर होती है कि भाई इनके प्लेयर्स इनकी इनके इनके फैंस का स्ट्रगल जहाँ शुरू होता है वहाँ हमारे अच्छे दिन शुरू होते हैं. बिकॉज इनका तो स्ट्रगल ये है कि हम प्लेऑफ्स पहुंच के हम लोग हार जाते हैं. हम तो यहाँ तरस रहे हैं कि भाई प्लेऑफ्स की शक्ल नहीं दिख रही हमें 4 साल से. बट आई थिंक इस्लामाबाद यूनाइटेड का obviously there's the one aspect कि एक bottlers का tag लग गया है, which whether you agree with it or not, for banter purposes it's quite funny कि कि हाँ, प्लेऑफ्स तक पहुंचना तो चलो इनका है, लेकिन उसके बाद प्रोग्राम बढ़ ही जाता है हमेशा. बट एज ए न्यूट्रल इट्स ऑलवेज, आई थिंक, एनी टाइम क्वेटा गोज आउट, मेरा डिफॉल्ट सेटिंग यही होता है कि इस्लामाबाद यूनाइटेड अब जीते. बिकॉज डेटा बेस्ड फ्रेंचाइज एंड आई एम अ डेटा नर्ड, आई एम अ मैचअप्स नर्ड. And I think for all the nerds in Pakistan cricket, the Pakistan cricket fan base, Islamabad United is the go-to franchise usually. तो आई थिंक काफी लोग की सेकंड टीम होती है. बहुत से लोग जो एडमिट नहीं भी करना चाहते हैं. तो यार इस्लामाबाद की बात यह है कि देखो हम हर टीम की बैटिंग और बॉलिंग दोनों के बारे में बात करने वाले हैं, पर इस्लामाबाद यूनाइटेड की बैटिंग के बारे में बात करके करना भी किया है। लाइक टॉप टू बॉटम बैटिंग ऑर्डर इज ऑल लाइक ऑलवेज लाइक जस्ट इट्स जस्ट सो गुड। you आपके like opening में आपके obviously Hales and Monroe are a bit out of form right now. Monroe had a good big bash though. Hales specifically I think has been struggling a little bit. But I think
I think like
like
in the
yeah,
ILT20 Hales has really picked up the pace in the last few games. शुरू में काफी
yeah.
struggle किया था.
अच्छा हाँ नहीं, I have not been watching the IL T20. There's too many leagues going on at the same time right now. मैं ऐसे 20 थोड़ा बहुत देख लेता हूँ, लेकिन IL T20 का मुझे इतना बियॉन्ड द डेजर्ट वाइपर्स गेम्स बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली हमारे लड़के वो खेल रहे थे, they're out now. um, तो you have you have Azam Khan and Shadab Khan. Somehow they've managed, like they have the two best local middle order batsmen in the country. um, the two best players of spin in the country as well. Both of them are in Islamabad. Then you have Fahim Ashraf, who last year had an absolutely amazing season with the bat, which wasn't something people were expecting. और जो एक bowling के साथ भी वो utility provide कर लेता है. And if they didn't have enough good all-rounders, they've also had Imad Wasim this time, जो पिछले साल all-rounder of the tournament थे. तो all-rounders यहाँ हैं इस्लामाबाद में. तो बैटिंग वाइज तो आई थिंक एंड दे आल्सो हैव जॉर्डन कॉक्स हु देव एडेड. एंड अभी उन्होंने सप्लीमेंट्री रिप्लेसमेंट में, सॉरी, सैम करन्स की मोहम्मद वसीम यूएई वालों वाले जो प्लेयर हैं उनको भी पिकअप किया है. um, रियली स्पॉइल्ड फॉर चॉइसेस यार. सलमान अली आगा भी है, हैदर अली भी है, कासिम अकरम भी है. इट्स लाइक या आई मीन आई एम you tell me, Talha, what do you think about this whole collection of batters?
Yeah, it was like it's so really well built that when making a likely 11, there's like one spot which I couldn't fill because you can either fit. There's so many all-rounders that you can either fit an extra bowling option or an extra batting option, or you can fit all-rounders like Agha or Qasim, which can provide a bowling option when lefties are batting it as well. An off-spin option. And um, even talking about the bowling phases, I think all of them are covered pretty well. You have Imad who can bowl in the power play and the middle overs. Naseem was a top tail bowler, and then Fahim Ashraf is really the perfect guy who can take the later overs in the power play and the middle overs. And the overseas options like Timal Mills, the left arm option as well, and that death bowler, specialist death bowler. So as I said at the start, the structure of the squad is really excellent, but just the execution has to be different this year in the playoffs. I think definitely it would be a massive failure if this kind of team doesn't win the title. But then again, we've said that before, so there's been quite a few surprising failures from Islamabad.
Yeah, and I think it's like execution पे आप बात कर रहे थे, and I totally agree because I feel like a lot of the time it looks like Islamabad are overthinking what they're doing. Like last year, I think उन्होंने जो playoffs में जो 11 lineup किया था, um, uh, it was
They
kind of
brought in Sohaib Maksud for Asif Ali.
yeah
Um,
for Asif Ali, which me like I was like doesn't make much sense. Like obviously I have a soft spot for Sohaib Maksud. He's really defied expectations with injuries and everything, and still managed to dominate the PSL in recent years. He's not where he used to be, obviously, from a physical perspective. Um, and it just felt like you were adding too many batters to the team at one point where it was coming at the expense of your bowling. And it was a batter like we saw जो playoff में Sohaib Maksud, he started off well, but then he really slowed down, and that's where the game really changed. And the tide turned against Islamabad. Not to say that it was down to him alone. Obviously, I think जो उसके बाद काफी batting आनी भी थी, and they didn't perform up to expectations. Um, so I think tactically speaking, that's something I think with a new coaching staff coming in, I think it's going to help
Yeah, I
change that
think
mindset a
like
little bit.
speaking specifically of that innings against Zalmi in the eliminator, I think it's unfair to blame Sohaib too much because it was still a gettable chase when he got out, even after his slowdown. But yeah, you spoke about
Yeah.
overthinking, and Sohaib Maksud coming in, even if Asif Ali's form was pretty bad, was kind of, a kind of second guessing the previous approach that they had. So I think just the fact that you made the playoffs, I think means, you should really keep backing your players who've made it thus far.
या एंड आई थिंक यही है कि आपको अगर आप एक आपका एक ट्राइड एंड टेस्टेड प्लेयर है आप उसको ऐसी गेम्स होती हैं where you know when you get to a point where you're in the playoffs, that's when you really like you're like even if they're not in form, we trust this guy. हम इस लड़के को ट्रस्ट करते हैं कि ये हमें ना लेके, एंड ही इज डन इट बिफोर, लाइक he's उसने जो सीजन 3 के फाइनल में जिस तरह से he took obviously that was a slightly more straightforward situation, but he still gave them that final push over the line in that final. um but yeah, I think
Yeah, I
that's
think
one thing
like
they
Asif,
really need
I
to.
think I think Asif is easily in the top five local batters in PSL history, considering his role. Especially in the UAE games, he was really excellent, and he's with
Yeah,
Zalmi now. Which uh, we'll say more, I guess, in the Zalmi preview, but it was really a smart pick from Zalmi as well.
oh, 100%. And I think it comes down to the fact कि अगर हम लोग आसिफ is someone who, like, I would say over hated in our cricketing circles. Like ये एक ऐसी उसकी एक USP है where it's like, if he wasn't, there's a reason he keeps getting picked by franchises in higher categories. It simply comes down to the fact कि आपके पास lower order hitters इस मुल्क में नहीं है. And in that kind of country, you have a guy like Asif, who, granted, he has his limitations. Everyone knows he does. But
Yeah, like
he
the
has a
pool
he
of
also has a skill set
um,
that no one else does.
yeah, like at least a couple years back, the pool of lower order pace hitters was just Asif Ali and Umar Akmal. That tells you everything.
Yeah. But moving on, obviously Asif has now moved on from Islamabad, and we'll talk about him more on the Zalmi preview. Bowling, that's I think the major discussion. I think batting में तो हम बस तारीफ ही करेंगे क्योंकि they have all the talent in the world. We just need to figure out how to assemble that attack. Bowling, on the other hand, is an area where I think they've struggled to pick up the best options. And a little bit of that is down to the fact that, like local जो अच्छे pacers थे, they were already kind of stockpiled at current franchises. Like Rehan Bhai also did mention this when we spoke to him. Like, you have like three of the best pacers already at Lahore. Or फिर Naseem or Hasnain were always at Quetta. Um, so ये एक बात Ahmed used to be at Karachi. Even, and he had a few bad years in the middle, but he was always like amongst those that top tier of pacers otherwise. So this season, though, I think not only have they picked up, I would say like Naseem is probably the best pacer in Pakistan, not named Shaheen Afridi. Um, so they've already got like one of the best pacers in Pakistan and even the world, I would say. But they've also added his brothers Ubaid and Hunain, who which essentially setting them up to build for the future as well. So they, especially with Ubaid, I think the type of under 19 World Cup he's having, I think he can be that player where like 5 years from now we look at, ओ इस्लामाबाद ने इस लड़के को 5 साल पहले उठा के ना स्मार्ट बहुत ही एक अच्छी इन्वेस्टमेंट की है, एंड लाइक इट कुड बिकम अ पोटेंशियल लाइक शाहीन LQ Shaheen level investment for them. Um, how are you seeing this bowling attack coming together?
Yeah, so I think this PSL season can be classified as a season of big transitions. But even among those transitions, for every team, Islamabad have managed to retain most of their core, apart from Asif Ali. And they've also improved their bowling attack. Asif departed, but they traded Hassan Ali for Imad, who's a great hitter down the order and an excellent bowling option. And then they got Naseem in exchange for Wasim Jr. and Abrar Ahmed, which is, I think, a big upgrade because Naseem for Wasim is a straight swap, and Abrar was not playing most of the games anyway. So, having lost just Asif and Hassan Ali, who were past their prime, and gained Imad, who's playing pretty well, and Naseem Shah. I think it really is, fantastic work. And yeah, you spoke about Ubaid and Hunain, who really Ubaid really was Pakistan's best player in the under 19 World Cup. He's shown tremendous potential, and Hunain has had a very good national T20 Cup recently. I think they'll start with Hunain as the emerging player because he has T20 experience. But if you look at their skill set, I think most people would say that Ubaid is really ahead of him in terms of skill set and potential.
Yeah, for sure. And I have the numbers up here from last season in Islamabad. The two middle overs was not terrible for them. Obviously, we talked about this in the Karachi preview. Hassan Ali ने काफी उनको एक अच्छा एक बेस दिया था मिडल ओवर्स में लास्ट ईयर. बट अगर हम पावर प्ले के नंबर्स देख लें तो इस्लामाबाद had an economy of 9.57 in the power play and an average of 42. So they were struggling with both economy wise and wicket taking wise. So I think Naseem Shah is kind of a kill two birds with one stone because we know कि he is a wicketing threat, but not only that, अगर वो विकेट ना ले पा रहा हो तो वो एक एंड पे एटलीस्ट रन फ्लो को टाइट कर देता है. And I think adding Imad Wasim to the mix really helps with that as well because towards the latter end of the power play, आपके over 5 or 6 हो गए, 4, 5, 6 हो गए, he can really come in and not only he can again it comes down to या तो वो विकेट ले लेगा या वो रन फ्लो को रोक देगा. तो I think this is something they're really gonna benefit from this season. They also
Yeah,
have
like
Tamal Mills obviously. And Tamal Mills is like he's someone who's obviously not he's past his prime, like if you're being totally honest, but एक लेफ्ट आर्म एंगल का जो एडवांटेज होता है ना, you can't really count that out, especially with the new ball. Then yeah, before I hand it over to you, just if we look at the death bowling numbers, while they didn't really struggle for wickets, they were going at an economy of 10 at the death. So once again, I think the additions they have this year with Naseem and Hunain, I think that should really shore those numbers up towards the back end as well.
yeah, like if you look at their bowlers' numbers in the power play in the last couple of years, Imad has an economy rate of 6.3 and average of 23, which is amazing. He's bowled 127 overs in the last 2 years in the power play, which is is a really massive upgrade in terms of power play bowling stocks. And Naseem, I think Shaheen is better than him in T20s, maybe even Haris Rauf, discounting his recent form. But I think Naseem is the best defensive pacer in white ball for Pakistan. He can really stop the flow of runs and induce mistakes from the batters. And in the power play, he has an economy rate of 7 in the last couple of years. So you add in Fahim Ashraf to the mix, who's been a solid power play bowler and middle overs bowler for Islamabad. I think they really have tried to plug that hole in the bowling attack. Islamabad have become pretty famous for leaking runs and trying to like score more runs than they leak. So they've really tried to plug those gaps in the bowling.
A little bit of a different spin on Islamabad. So Shadab Khan has been captain since season 5, and this would probably be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So his fifth season as captain. He's someone who is rated quite highly from a tactical point of view. He's like, everyone says कि ये एक ऐसा कैप्टन है जो डेटा में भी बिलीव करता है थोड़ा प्रोग्रेसिव सा माइंडसेट. Um, but I would say 4 seasons without a trophy, he's heading into his fifth. Um, do you see this as a bit of a make or break season for him because वो खुद भी फॉर्म के लिए स्ट्रगल कर रहा है? That's been a hot topic of discussion. Do you think, as from a captaincy perspective, this is a bit of a make or break season because if Islamabad don't manage to win for the fifth season in a row, do you think question marks start coming on whether they need a change in that area?
Yeah, obviously his form has been pretty terrible lately. There's no mincing words there. He even got dropped from the World Cup 11 during the World Cup, despite going into the World Cup as Pakistan's vice captain. Which tells you
And he
everything.
also got dropped by his ILT20 team.
Yeah, like the IL T20 were probably Pakistani players in his team, the Desert Vipers, were the most sought after players, and despite that, he still got dropped. So it really tells you everything about his form recently. So yeah, I think it's definitely a make or break season for him, to stay in the Pakistan 11 for the World Cup, let alone his Islamabad captaincy. So he has to really turn it around, because he even last season he didn't have a very good year in the PSL, and even though he didn't get to play much T20 cricket in the lead up to the World Cup, he even after he's coming back from an injury as well in the IL T20, even taking those factor into consideration, you still like really can't sugarcoat the terrible form he's been in. And as for the captaincy point, yeah, he's been a winless captain so far for Islamabad in terms of trophies. But I think there's also the factor that he's a franchise player. He's been there since season two for Islamabad. He's a senior member of the team alongside the likes of Fahim. So um, and obviously the backroom staff, Rehan Bhai and the team ownership and everything, and everyone, they really have a lot of trust in him. So, and his on-field captaincy is not bad at all, honestly. So I think it's too early to say if it's either win a trophy or be removed from the captaincy, or uh, even like uh, I don't think like the trophy factor is too much of a consideration, because yeah, he's I think it's been 4 years, so I think we would have already seen a change in captaincy if that was the only consideration, like whether he wins a trophy or not.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in many ways he personifies that identity of the franchise as well.
If
But
I
it's
can
the
give an
same.
example,
Yeah.
like if I can give an example, you had Virat Kohli as RCB captain for such a long time without winning a trophy, but there was no question mark on his captaincy until he himself stepped down. So Shadab is that kind of player for Islamabad United, uh, because even though he's had a not a good season last year, he's still that kind of he's the face of Islamabad United really.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yes, kind of moving on from that, I think we can probably discuss what the expected 11 for Islamabad is. And I think out of all the franchises in the tournament, this is the most difficult to make expected 11 for, just because of the level of talent they have this year. But if we try to take a track at it, what I have on my end right now is I think they'll start with Hales and Monroe as openers. I think that's a given. That's been quite a consistent. Those two have been a consistent fixture. Monroe has played quite a couple of different positions for them, and I think this season he'll probably start as an opener. Uh, Salman Ali Aga, I think we can expect him to be at number three. Um, because Rehan, by when we spoke to him, he did really stress on the fact that they wanted an off-spin bowling option who could bat, and he does provide that. Jordan Cox is someone I think who will probably play as a bit of a floater in this 11. He can kind of play anywhere in that middle order. Same with Azam Khan, same with Shadab Khan. I think ye jo teen hai, Cox, Azam or Shadab. I think all three of them will be playing and they'll be kind of floating around as depending on the basis. We know how Islamabad thinks about those matchups and numbering and positions. Then Fahim comes in, Imad, these two will be coming in at probably in the lower at like 6, 7, 8, somewhere around that position. Um, then yeah, that just leaves the three pacers. I think Naseem Shah is obviously he's fit now, so hopefully we'll be seeing him line up in about a day. Quite excited for that. I have missed him so much. I've missed him running in so much, and I think everyone who'd be listening has as well. Hunan Shah, as we discussed, he's probably expected to be the emerging player who's playing for them. Obviously, has more T20 experience, so we'll probably be seeing him play. And then, yeah, Timal Mills will probably start. And if not Timal Mills, I think he'll be starting the tournament, obviously. But I think Obed McCoy comes in as a backup as well. And then they also have Matthew Ford from the West Indies. So any one of those foreign players will be featuring in that position as most probably. Um, One caveat I do have is that potentially Aga की जगह वो लोग शायद Qasim को भी खिला दें. And Qasim is someone who can come a bit lower in the order if that's the way they want to go. But yeah, Talha, what were you thinking for potential 11s?
Yeah, pretty much the same 11. It's very predictable because, as I said before, apart from Asif, they've retained the core of the batting. Jordan Cox is a new addition. He can float around just like in he can float around in the top five, just like Aga. And you have two spin hitters in Shadab and Azam, and then you have two pace hitters to follow in Imad and Fahim. And there's a plethora of all rounders, which really gives you that flexibility. Even if they want to play an extra bowler, maybe instead of Aga or Kasim, they can do that. And the dream really would be to see all three Shaw brothers play together at least one game. But as you said, Hunan has that T20 experience and good numbers in the National T20 Cup. I was doing a couple of previews yesterday for another podcast, and I picked Ubaid Shah as the emerging player of the season because I think his skill set is such that I think eventually he will get a chance to prove himself, hopefully. And if he does get that chance, I think he'll really excel in the PSL as well.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I personally don't think Ubaid will get too much game time this season. I think obviously the season after that is where you can probably see him featuring more in the Islamabad 11. But my personal hope is that Islamabad qualifies early enough that they just give us that tweet of the three Shah brothers playing together. Because obviously, if they do qualify together, like qualify early, then there's a bit more room to kind of rotate the squad, and then just for the sake of for just for the heck of it, give it to us. Like हमें थोड़ी एक हमारी एक ख्वाहिश पूरी कर दें कि हम तीनों शाह भाई को एक साथ बॉलिंग करते हुए देखें.
Yeah, and also another point I like to make is they've really focused on picking players like Ubaid Shah, Hunan Shah, and Shamil Hussain, who can really be,
Shamil as well.
who can be, if things go well, they can really form the next core of Islamabad United. You have Fahim in his 30s now, Imad in his mid 30s, and Shadab and Azam obviously are going to be there for a long time. So alongside Naseem, you have these Shadab, Azam, Naseem forming the current generation of international level players, and then you have Hunan, Shamil, Ubaid, who played the latter two have played the Under 19 World Cup recently, who maybe can be the next generation of mainstays in the Pakistan lineup. So even if they've picked a fantastic squad for this season, they've also had an eye on the future few seasons, which is really great to see.
And Shamil's a great pick in my opinion, because he is obviously seen as one of the white ball batting talents जो कि जिसकी बहुत ही एक high ceiling है. So I think that's always a good investment. We saw Zalmi do it with Sam Ayub last year. Obviously, Shamil a bit less he's obviously a bit less proven in the sense that he's done it at under 19 level. He hasn't quite done it at senior level yet. But I think he has that kind of potential as well. So you never know. Maybe 2 years from now, he could Zalmi क्यों बोल रहा हूँ मैं? He could be Islamabad's first choice opener at some point. Maybe in the next 2 years or 3 years. Um, Before we
Yeah,
wrap up this,
and
obviously, sorry, yeah,
yeah,
go.
I think we can't end a preview of a team with Heather Ali in it without talking about Heather Ali.
I really don't want to do this right now. But yeah, Heather Ali, yeah, it's been my dream since season two. Like not season two, I mean his season two, not for PSL season two, obviously. वो तो तब probably the teenager when the actual season two was happening. उसका जो खुद का second season था Zalmi के साथ where he got like kind of shuffled up and down the order. Ever since then I've had this bit of a मेरी ख्वाहिश रही है कि देखो Zalmi इसको थोड़ा shuffle out कर रही है. I hope like he just asks to leave and goes to Islamabad. Didn't happen. He had another season at Zalmi. He had a third season where he did do well. But then after that he was about to leave, and I was like, maybe now like he wasn't gonna leave, but he got traded over, right, to Karachi. And I would have ideally liked to see him traded over to Islamabad but unfortunately he was a platinum player or Islamabad की जो top two categories they were always full because they have so much like good local talent.
Yeah, like I think there was rumor floating around of Ramiz Raza deciding the categories himself for that
Hmm.
season, and if he picked Heather in platinum, I think he was even a bigger Heather fan than you.
Yeah, for once, me and Ramiz Raja have something in common, I guess. But yeah, I think that was quite an idiotic move. Like Heather was a player जो काफी hot and cold already चल रहा था, and I think इतने young player, I think bowler पाकिस्तान में चलो आप उनको इस level का pressure डाल लो चलता है, like वो हमारे खून में है, bowling like चल जाता है, like even with the pressure. But I think as a young batter to put that kind of pressure के आप ना platinum category में हो, more often than not, considering the type of batting culture that we have, players that crash and burn, especially when they're a bit flamboyant, like, the likes of Heather. But I think it's quite positive for him. Okay, वो अभी gold category में है, and he's been picked as a supplementary pick, so I think he'll get like maybe two or three games here and there. But I think Islamabad is the perfect place for him to kind of recalibrate, gather himself, look at his strengths, sorry about that, look at his strengths, look at his weaknesses. Um, so yeah, I think yeah, Heather can really benefit from this stint at Islamabad, and I think if if things come together for him in the next 12 months, I think a season from now, we could very well see him in Islamabad's first choice 11. That's the hope, that's the prayer. If this reaches Heather somehow, देखो भाई, I'm rooting for you. I've been rooting for you since day one. बहुत गालियां खाई हैं आपके लिए. Like you just need to you need to realize that you're way too talented to let it go. Let yourself go to waste. Just make the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, and in the ideal scenario, you have Heather Ali and Shamil Hussain opening for Islamabad in after a couple seasons.
Opening, I would rather have him at number three, but yeah, your general idea is uh quite spot on. But yeah, before we wrap up, quick predictions for Islamabad. I feel like this is again Islamabad की previews करना थोड़ा बहुत repetitive हो जाता है because I feel like we just घूम फिर के वही बात होती है हर साल के. Yeah, playoffs पहुंचने वाले हैं. My prediction this time is that I think they're going to win the whole thing. With the type of squad they have, I think anything less is like just it's going to be a major disappointment for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was going to say the same thing. I think you have to win this season, or it's really a massive failure.
Yeah, and I think this time इस बार ये है कि आप खेल भी कराची में रहो. चलो लाहौर की जो थोड़ी पिच है ना, इट्स अ बिट डिफरेंट compared to the other T20 surfaces in the country. और वहाँ पे वो थोड़ा फंस जाते हैं, एंड ऑल्सो ऑब्वियसली लाहौर का क्राउड जो होता है, एंड देन दे एंड अप फेसिंग लाहौर कलंदर्स.
मेरा तो थिंकिंग अबाउट इस्लामाबाद प्लेइंग इन लाहौर मेरा पीटीएसडी शुरू हो जाता है क्योंकि मैं एक लाइव मैच भी देखा है इसमें लाहौर ने हमें सही पिटाई की थी यारी ब्रुक ने और लास्ट सीजन जल्मी वाला चौक भी याद है सो इट्स गुड टू सी द प्लेऑफ्स इन कराची दिस टाइम
एग्जैक्टली, एंड लाइक कराची का काफी फ्लैट विकेट होगा, तो आई थिंक इट्स रियली गोना सूट देम. तो इट्स गोना रियली play to their strengths. So I think there's really no reason for them not to win this year. If anything less happens, I think it's gonna be a major disappointment. But yeah. So yeah, before we wrap up, Talha, any parting thoughts? You're the resident Islamabad fan.
yeah to be honest just hoping for a win against Lahore tomorrow in the starting game so I don't have to listen to Lahore Qalandars fans anymore on Twitter. It's been a few years since we beat them. And if they beat us tomorrow, it would be 9-9 in the head to head. So they will, officially catch up. So I really hope we win tomorrow और बाकी बाद में देख लेंगे.
Fair enough. मैं तो बैठ के I'll just be sitting back and enjoying the carnage on Twitter because दोनों दोनों जंगलियों की तरह लड़ रहे होगे तुम लोग. But yeah, with that, we'll bring this episode to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we still have more teams to preview. I think there's about four more teams left to preview. So, yeah, just stay tuned to the channel. We will catch you guys later. Take care and goodbye.